The research ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. It was called the Quiet Dawn, and it had been traveling for 3 months. Captain stood on the bridge and watched the stars pass by. She was tired. Her 4 eyes blinked slowly as she looked at the scanner screens. They were not warriors. They were scientists and teachers. They collected knowledge from across the galaxy. Their skin was pale blue and it glowed softly in certain lights. They had 4 arms and 4 eyes, and they moved with gentle grace. In all their long history, they had never started a war. They believed that knowledge was more powerful than any weapon. "Captain," said the navigator, "I am detecting something strange on the fourth moon of 7. Turned to look at the screen. There was metal scattered across the moon's surface. A ship had crashed there. "Take us closer," she said. As they approached, felt her heart grow heavy. The crashed ship was small, meant for a family perhaps. It had been torn apart by some terrible force. Bodies floated in the wreckage, frozen in the cold of space. "Are there any survivors?" asked. The scanner operator, a young male named, worked quickly at his station. His 4 hands moved across the controls with speed. Then he stopped. His eyes went wide. "Captain, there is one life sign. It is weak, but it is there. Did not hesitate. Prepare a rescue team. I will go myself." The other officers looked at each other with worry. They knew this was against the rules. The crashed ship was not. It was not from any species they recognized. The Galactic Assembly had strict laws about contact with unknown species, but was already walking to the airlock. Followed her. "Captain, I must come with you. If there is a survivor, they will need medical help." Together they crossed through the wreckage. The moon had no air, so they wore protective suits, stepped over broken metal and shattered glass. She saw the frozen bodies and said a quiet prayer for them. They had died far from home, whoever they were. Then she heard it, a sound on her communication device. It was faint, but it was there, crying. She moved faster now, climbing through the destroyed ship until she found a small room. The door was bent and broken. Inside, wrapped in emergency blankets that had kept him warm, was a child. He was small, maybe 6 years old by counting. He had only 2 eyes and they were red from crying. His skin was a strange pinkish color, nothing like any species had seen before. He held a torn blanket against his chest, and he looked up at her with pure terror. Knelt down slowly. She did not want to scare him more. She removed her helmet so he could see her face. "Hello, little one," she said softly. "I am not going to hurt you." The child did not understand her words. Of course he did not. But something in her voice must have reached him because he stopped crying. He just stared at her with those strange 2 eyes. Came up behind her and scanned the child with his medical device. "He is injured, but he will live. Captain, this is remarkable. I have never seen this species before." Reached out slowly with one of her hands. The child flinched at first, but then he reached back. His tiny fingers wrapped around one of hers. "We are taking him with us," said. "Captain, the Assembly will not approve. We do not know what species this is. The protocols say." "The protocols can wait." Picked up the child carefully. He weighed almost nothing. He was shaking with cold and fear, but he did not fight her. He buried his face in her shoulder like any frightened child would. Back on the ship, worked quickly to treat the child's wounds. He had broken bones and cuts, but nothing that would not heal. The more interesting discovery came when they analyzed the wreckage. "These markings," said the science officer, "I have seen them in old records. This is a human ship." The bridge went silent. Humans? Everyone in the galaxy had heard of humans. They were a young species from a small planet called Earth. They had only recently begun traveling between stars. The Galactic Assembly had classified them as dangerous. Their history was filled with war and violence. They fought each other constantly. The Assembly had decided to keep them isolated, to not make contact until they became more civilized. "We should report this," said the first officer. "The Assembly will want to know." "And what will they do?" asked. They will take this child and put him in a laboratory. They will study him like an animal. Is that what you want?" No one answered. Looked down at the child sleeping in the medical bay. His breathing was steady now. His small hand still held that torn blanket. "His parents are dead," she said quietly. "His ship is destroyed. He has no one. I will not send him to be poked and examined by beings who think his species is beneath them." "Then what do we do?" asked. Thought for a long moment. Then she made her decision. "We keep him, we raise him, we give him a home." It was not a small thing she was saying. It went against every rule they had. It could mean trouble for all of them if the assembly ever found out. But as watched the human child sleep, she knew it was the right thing to do. They named him. It was a name that meant gift of the stars. At first he was scared and confused. He cried for his parents. He spoke words no one understood. But children are strong, stronger than adults in many ways. Slowly he began to learn. Became like an uncle to him. He taught about medicine and science. Became his mother in all the ways that mattered. She read him stories at night and held him when he had bad dreams. The crew of the Quiet Dawn became his family. Years passed, grew from a frightened child into a strong young man. He learned to speak the language perfectly. He studied their history and their customs. He played with children who never cared that he looked different. To them, he was just. But he was still human. He grew faster than children. He was stronger than them too. When he ran, he could run for hours without stopping. When he got hurt, he healed quickly. These things surprised the who had never seen such a species before. "You are remarkable," told him once, when was 15. "Your body is designed for survival in ways we never imagined." Just shrugged. He did not feel remarkable, he felt normal. When he turned 18, had almost forgotten his old life. Sometimes he dreamed of faces he could not quite remember. Sometimes he heard words in a language that felt familiar but lost. But when he woke up, he was surrounded by people who loved him. He did not know that everything was about to change. He did not know that far across the galaxy, an empire of conquerors had turned their eyes toward space. He did not know that the peaceful life he had known was about to be torn apart. But he would learn, and when he did, the galaxy would learn something too. They would learn what happens when you hurt the people a human loves. The morning began like any other on Prime. The twin suns rose over the crystal cities, and the light made everything glow with soft colors. Stood on the balcony of the Archive of Ages, watching the people below go about their day. Children walked to school. Scientists hurried to their laboratories. Artists set up their work in the public squares. It was beautiful, it was peaceful, it was home. Was 18 now, tall and strong. His body had filled out in ways that surprised the around him. He was broader than them, more muscular. His 2 eyes saw things differently than their 4 eyes did, but none of that mattered to him. He was in his heart, even if not in his body. Found him there, staring at the horizon. She moved slowly now, age catching up with her after so many years of travel and work. Her blue skin had faded to a lighter shade, and her glow was softer than before. But her 4 eyes still held the same warmth they had when she first found him in that crashed ship. "You look troubled," she said, joining him at the railing. "I do not know why," admitted. "I feel strange today, like something is wrong." Smiled gently. "You always did have good instincts. Your human senses are sharper than ours." Before could respond, the sky changed. It happened so fast. One moment the twin suns were shining peacefully. The next, dark shapes appeared among the clouds. Ships, hundreds of them. They blocked out the light like a swarm of insects. Alarms began to scream across the city. Grabbed's arm and pulled her back from the balcony just as the first blast hit. The explosion shook the entire building. Fire erupted in the distance, sending towers of smoke into the air. People in the streets began to run, screaming in terror. Watched as one of the crystal spires collapsed, crushing everything beneath it. They whispered, her voice was filled with horror. They have come. Knew that name. Everyone knew that name. The Dominion was an empire of conquerors. They moved through the galaxy taking whatever they wanted. They had destroyed dozens of species before. The Galactic Assembly had promised to protect from them, but as watched the ships rain fire down on his home, he understood that no help was coming. "We have to get to the evacuation ships," he said, pulling toward the stairs. The next hours were chaos, moved through burning streets, carrying injured people to safety. His human body served him well here. He could lift things that could not. He could run without getting tired. He could push through smoke that would have choked others. But for every person he saved, 10 more died. He found at the medical center, working frantically to treat the wounded. His 4 arms moved without stopping, bandaging burns and setting broken bones. Blood covered his clothes, most of it not his own. Said when he saw him, "Thank the stars, help me move these people to the transport ships." Together they carried stretchers through the destroyed city, saw things he would never forget. Families searching for lost children, elders too old to run, sitting calmly as fire approached them. Young trying to fight back with tools and equipment, having no real weapons at all. They had never believed in violence. They had no army, no warships, no soldiers. They had trusted in peace and knowledge to protect them. Now that trust was being burned away along with everything else. The ground forces arrived as the sun was setting. They were huge creatures, covered in thick armor that made them look like walking tanks. They carried weapons that could cut through walls like paper. They moved through the city without mercy, taking prisoners and killing anyone who resisted. Was helping load civilians onto a transport ship when he heard the screams from the Archive of Ages. They had breached the ancient building. They were taking the scholars who worked there, the keepers of 10,000 years of knowledge. He ran without thinking. The archive was burning when he arrived. Soldiers were dragging out into the street, forcing them to their knees. One of the scholars tried to protect an ancient book, and a soldier struck him so hard he did not get up again. Something snapped inside. He saw a fallen soldier near the entrance. The creature was dead, killed by falling debris. Its weapon lay beside it, a heavy rifle meant for hands much larger than his. Picked it up. He had never held a weapon before. They had taught him that violence solved nothing. But as he watched more scholars being beaten, as he heard them crying out for help that would not come, something ancient woke up inside him. Something human. He fired. The first shot took a soldier in the back. The creature fell forward, dead before it hit the ground. The other soldiers turned, confused. They had never seen a human before. They did not know what they were looking at. Fired again and again. 3 soldiers fell before they understood what was happening. Then they turned their weapons on him. A stun blast hit him in the chest, and the world went dark. When he woke up, he was in chains. His arms were bound behind his back and his legs were locked together. Around him, dozens of sat in the same condition. They were in some kind of transport ship, and through a small window could see Prime growing smaller in the distance. Their home was burning. Was beside him, her wrists bound with metal bands. She looked at him with eyes full of pain and love. "I am sorry," she whispered. "We should have sent you back to your people when you were young. You did not deserve to share our fate." Looked at her. He looked at on his other side, wounded but alive. He looked at the dozens of who had been his family for 12 years. "You are my people," he said. "I am exactly where I belong." But even as he said it, memories stirred in his mind. Old memories from before the crash. A woman's voice singing to him. A man's hands lifting him into the air. Words in a language he had almost forgotten. He was, but he was also something else. He was human. And somewhere out there, beyond the stars, there were more of his kind. A whole civilization of beings like him. Beings who had evolved to survive. Beings who knew how to fight. did not know if they would care about him. He did not know if they would care about the humans were supposed to be violent and selfish. The galaxy feared them for good reason. But as the transport ship carried them away from their burning world made a decision. He would find a way to contact his birth species. He would tell them what had happened here. He would ask for their help. And if the galaxy was right about humans, if they really were as dangerous as everyone believed, then maybe that was exactly what they needed. Someone dangerous. Someone who would fight back. Station floated in the darkness between stars. It was massive, larger than any city had ever seen. They had built it to process their captives, to sort them like cargo and send them wherever they were most useful. Some would go to labor camps. Some would go to research facilities. Some would simply disappear. Stood in line with hundreds of other prisoners. Guards walked along the rows, examining each captive with cold eyes. They kept their heads down, silent and afraid. They were not built for this kind of suffering. Their gentle spirits were being broken with every passing hour. A guard stopped in front of and stared at him for a long moment, stared back. He did not look away. "This one is different," the guard said to another. "What species is this?" "Unknown. The scientists want to examine it." Felt hands grab his arms and pull him out of the line. He looked back at who was watching him with tears in her 4 eyes. He wanted to call out to her, to tell her everything would be okay, but he did not know if that was true. They took him to a different section of the station. The walls here were white and clean, nothing like the dirty holding cells where the other prisoners waited. Scientists in gray coats gathered around him, speaking in a language he did not understand. They poked at him. They took samples of his blood. They measured every part of his body. One of them shook his head in amazement. "Look at this muscle density. Look at how quickly his wounds have healed. This species is built for survival." Endured it all in silence. He watched, he listened, he learned. Days turned into weeks. The scientists continued their examinations, but they also grew careless. They left alone in his cell for long periods. They talked openly in front of him, not realizing how quickly he was learning their language. Humans were good at learning. It was one of the things that made them dangerous. In the general population found allies. The first was a female of a species called the. Her people had been conquered by a generation ago. She had been born a slave, had never known freedom, but she had never stopped dreaming of it. She worked as an engineer, maintaining the station's systems, and she knew every corridor and access point. "Why do you want to help me?" asked her one night when they managed to speak privately. 3 eyes studied him carefully. "Because I have never seen anyone fight back like you did. The story has spread through the station. A strange creature killed 3 soldiers with their own weapon. Prisoners whisper about it. You have given them something they did not have before." "What is that?" "Hope." The second ally was an elderly scholar who had been taken from the archive of ages. She was old and frail, but her mind was still sharp. She had spent her long life studying the galaxy's many species, including one that had always fascinated her. "Humans," she said to one evening, as they sat together in the dim light of their cell block. "I have read every record we have about your kind. You are the most remarkable species I have ever encountered." Shook his head. "We are just people like anyone else." "No," said firmly. "You are not like anyone else. Do you know how long it took most species to develop space travel? Millions of years. Your people did it in less than 100,000. In the time it took to perfect agriculture, humans went from caves to nuclear weapons. That does not sound like something to be proud of." "Perhaps not, but it shows what you are capable of. The Galactic Assembly fears your kind, you know. They restricted contact with humans because they were afraid of what you might become." "What did they think we would become?" His 4 eyes met his 2. "Exactly what you are becoming now. A survivor, a fighter, someone who does not accept what he is told he cannot change." Thought about this for a long time. He thought about the who had raised him, who had loved him, who were now suffering because they had chosen peace over strength. He thought about growing weaker every day in her cell. He thought about trying to help injured prisoners with no medicine and no supplies. And he made a plan. With help, began mapping the station. She showed him where the communication arrays were located. She explained how the security systems worked. She pointed out the weak points in the defenses. "You cannot escape," she warned him. "The station is too far from any habitable system. Even if you took a ship, you would die before reaching safety." "I am not trying to escape," said. "I am trying to send a message." Tilted her head in confusion. A message to whom? "My people." It took 3 months of careful work. Learned the guards' schedules. He found ways to move through the station without being noticed. He taught himself to use technology by watching and imitating. Every night he practiced. Every day he waited. Finally, the moment came. Created a distraction, a small explosion in one of the engineering sections. While the guards rushed to investigate, slipped into the communication center. His heart was pounding. His hands were shaking. He had only a few minutes before someone noticed he was missing. The communication array was complex, but had studied it carefully. He found the frequency range used by human ships and entered it into the system. Then he began to speak. The words came out in Korean, his birth language. He had almost forgotten it, but now it came flooding back. The words his mother had sung to him. The words his father had whispered when he carried to bed. "This is a message to any human who can hear me. My name is, I was born on a colony ship that crashed 18 years ago. I was rescued by a species called they raised me. They loved me. They are my family." He paused, fighting back tears. "They have been conquered by the Dominion. Their world has been destroyed. Thousands of them are being held prisoner on a station called, they are being tortured. They are dying. And they do not deserve any of this. They are good people, gentle people. They saved my life when they could have left me to die." He entered the coordinates of the station into the message. "I do not know if anyone will hear this. I do not know if anyone will care. But I am asking for help, not for myself, for them. For the people who taught me that kindness matters, that knowledge is precious, that every life has value." The alarm began to sound. His time was up. "Please," said into the transmitter, "please help them. They saved one human child. They deserve better than this." He ended the message and ran. The guards found him minutes later. They beat him badly, worse than before. They threw him into a dark cell and left him there for days without food or water, but did not care about the pain. The message was sent. It was traveling through space at the speed of light, spreading outward in all directions. Maybe it would reach no one. Maybe it would be ignored. But maybe, just maybe, someone would hear it. And humans, as had told him, were capable of remarkable things. He could only hope she was right. 3 months passed after sent his message. Nothing happened. No response came. Life on station continued as it always had, filled with suffering and despair. Began to lose hope. He had been foolish, he thought. Why would anyone care about a message from a stranger? Why would humans who had never met him risk anything for people they did not know? The galaxy had taught him that everyone looked out for themselves. Kindness was rare. Help was rarer. Grew weaker by the day. They had discovered she was the captain who had first rescued, and they punished her for it. They reduced her food. They kept her in a cold cell. Her once bright skin had faded to pale gray, and her 4 eyes had lost their light. Sat with her whenever he could, holding her thin hands in his. "You should not have saved me," he told her one night. "If you had left me in that wreckage, none of this would have happened to you." Smiled weakly. "Then I would have missed 12 years of watching you grow, of hearing you laugh, of seeing you become the man you are today. I would do it all again, 1,000 times." He could not respond. The words stuck in his throat. Then, on a morning like any other, The alarm started. At first thought it was another drill. The RAN drills constantly, keeping their soldiers ready for threats that never came. But this alarm was different. It was louder, more urgent. He could hear guards running past his cell, shouting to each other in panicked voices. "What is happening?" asked another prisoner, a young named who had been captured with the others. "I do not know," admitted, but something in his chest stirred, something that felt like hope. The sounds grew louder. Explosions shook the station, making the walls tremble. Emergency lights flickered on and off. Through the small window of his cell could see ships flying past, locked in battle. The vessels were firing desperately at something, but one by one they were exploding into flames. Then he saw them. The ships were unlike anything he had seen before. They were sleek and powerful, covered in weapons that glowed with deadly light. They moved with perfect coordination, cutting through the fleet like predators through prey. On their hulls, painted in bold letters, were words had not seen in 18 years. United Terran Navy. Humans, they had come. Pressed his face against the window, tears streaming down his cheeks. The human ships were everywhere now, surrounding the station, destroying any vessel that tried to escape. The battle was brutal and fast. They had numbers, but the humans had something else, something fierce and relentless. They fought like they had been born for it. In the command center of the lead ship, Admiral watched the battle unfold on her display screens. She was 63 years old, with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many wars. She had commanded ships for 40 years, fought in battles across human space, lost friends and family to violence and death. But this mission was different. 3 months ago, a message had reached Earth. A young voice, speaking Korean, telling a story that made grown soldiers weep. A human child, saved by aliens who owed him nothing. Raised with love by a species the galaxy called weak and foolish. And now those same aliens were suffering, dying because they had shown kindness. The message had spread through human society like fire. People demanded action. Governments that normally argued about everything came together for once. The United Terran Navy mobilized faster than it ever had before. Not for resources, not for territory, not for political advantage. For family. Admiral, her tactical officer, reported, "Enemy fleet is at 30% strength. They are breaking formation." "Keep pushing," ordered. "Do not let a single one escape, and begin boarding operations on the station." "Yes, Admiral." Looked at the massive station on her screen. Somewhere inside, a young man was waiting. A young man who had been lost to humanity for 18 years. A young man who had never forgotten where he came from, even when he had every reason to. "We are coming," she whispered. "Hold on just a little longer." Inside the station, chaos ruled. Soldiers ran through the corridors, trying to organize a defense against the human Marines who were breaching the airlocks. The prisoners heard the fighting growing closer, heard the sounds of weapons fire and screaming. Then cell door exploded inward. A figure stood in the smoke, massive and terrifying in powered armor. The suit made the soldier look like a machine, all metal and weapons. In one hand he held a rifle that glowed with heat. In the other he held a scanner that was beeping rapidly. For a moment nobody moved. Then the soldier spoke, and his voice came through his helmet speaker in perfect Korean. "Son, are you?" Stepped forward, putting himself between the soldier and the injured behind him. His body was tense, ready to fight if he had to. "I am. Who are you?" The soldier lowered his weapon. Then slowly he removed his helmet. The face underneath was human, weathered and with kind eyes and a tired smile. He looked at like he was seeing something precious. "My name is Sergeant," he said. "We received your message. We came as fast as we could." Sleggs nearly gave out. "You came, you actually came." "Of course we came." Stepped forward and put a heavy hand on shoulder. "You are one of us, And these people, the ones who saved you, they are family too now. We protect our family. But there are so many of them, said, gesturing to the cells around them. Thousands of, we cannot leave them behind. Laughed, a warm sound that echoed through the corridor. Kid, we brought enough ships to carry everyone. Admiral's orders. Every single prisoner on this station is going home. More soldiers appeared behind, their weapons ready but pointed down. They moved through the cell block, breaking open doors, helping prisoners to their feet. A medic rushed to side and began treating her immediately. Watched it all with wonder. These strangers, these humans he had never met, were risking their lives for people they did not know, because of a message, because of a story, because one of their own had asked for help. Why, he asked, why did you come all this way? Why do you care about the... Looked at him seriously. You know why, your message told us everything. These people saved a human child when they could have left him to die. They raised him, loved him, made him part of their family, and now someone hurt them. His eyes hardened. Humanity does not forget kindness, and we do not forgive cruelty. They chose to harm innocent people. Now they are learning what that choice costs. Outside, the battle was ending. The fleet was destroyed, scattered wreckage floating in the void. Human ships surrounded the station, their weapons silent now that the fighting was done. Helped carry to the waiting transport ship. Her eyes were open, watching the human soldiers work around her with wonder. They came, she whispered. They really came. Yes, said, holding her close. They came. He looked out at the human ships, at the soldiers moving with purpose and determination. These were his people too, his other family, and they had crossed the galaxy to save him. To save all of them. The news spread across the galaxy like a wave. The Dominion, feared conquerors of 100 worlds, had been defeated. A species called humans, barely known outside their small corner of space, had destroyed an entire fleet to rescue prisoners who were not even their own kind. The Galactic Assembly called emergency meetings. Diplomats shouted at each other across great halls. Some demanded that humanity be punished for their aggression. Others argued that they deserved what they got. Everyone agreed on one thing: the galaxy would never be the same. But the humans did not care about politics. They had other things to do. Admiral personally led the convoy of rescue ships back to human space. The journey took weeks, and during that time she walked among the survivors every day. She listened to their stories. She learned their names. She made sure they had food and medicine and everything they needed. Watched her work with quiet respect. He had expected humans to be rough and harsh, the way the galaxy described them. Instead, he saw soldiers giving their own rations to hungry prisoners. He saw medics working through the night to save wounded. He saw playing with children, teaching them human games, making them laugh for the first time in months. You are not what I expected, he told one evening, as they stood together on the observation deck. What did you expect? Monsters, warriors. The galaxy says humans are violent and cruel. Smiled sadly. We can be. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. Wars, genocide, cruelty beyond imagination. She turned to look at him. But we are also capable of great love, great loyalty, great sacrifice. The same passion that makes us dangerous in war makes us fierce in protection. We would burn down the universe for the people we love. They do not understand violence, said. They think it solves nothing. They are wise. Violence should always be the last choice. Eyes hardened, but it should still be a choice. Evil does not stop because you refuse to fight it. Sometimes kindness needs teeth. The convoy arrived at a planet the humans had prepared. They called it new, and it took breath away when he first saw it. The world was beautiful. Green forests covered rolling hills. Clean rivers ran through wide valleys. The air was sweet and warm, perfect for physiology. The humans had spent months preparing it, building homes and schools and hospitals. They had studied architecture and tried to recreate the crystal spires of the lost. When the first transport ships landed, thousands of humans were waiting. They had come from across human space to welcome the survivors. They brought food and gifts and flowers. They held signs in the language that said, "Welcome home," and "You are family now and never again." Helped down the ramp of the ship. She leaned on him heavily, still weak from her ordeal. But as she looked out at the crowd, her 4 eyes filled with tears. "I do not understand," she said. "We did nothing to deserve this." "You saved one of us," told her. "That was enough." The dedication ceremony was held a week later, once the survivors had rested and recovered. Millions of humans attended, either in person or through broadcasts. Leaders from both species spoke about friendship and gratitude and the future they would build together. When stepped up to speak, the crowd fell silent. He looked out at the faces before him. Human faces and faces, side by side. Children of both species sat together on the grass, already becoming friends. Old wounds were beginning to heal. New bonds were forming. 18 years ago, began, his voice steady, I was a lost child floating in wreckage. I should have died, but Captain found me and chose to save my life. She did not know what I was. She did not know if her people would approve. She only knew that a child needed help and she was able to give it. He paused, looking at, who sat in the front row with tears streaming down her face. "That taught me that kindness is never wasted, that knowledge is more precious than gold, that every life has value, no matter how small or strange. They raised me as their own when they owed me nothing. They loved me when they had every reason to be afraid." He turned to look at Admiral, who stood behind him in her dress uniform. "And when they suffered, humanity answered. We crossed the galaxy not for profit or power, but because someone we love was in pain, because people who had shown us mercy were being destroyed, because that is who we are." Raised his voice so everyone could hear. "I am human and both. I carry 2 heritages in my heart, and today I ask that we carry each other. Let them teach us patience and wisdom. Let humanity teach them that strength can be used to protect, not just destroy. Let us build something new together, something neither of us could build alone." The crowd erupted in cheers, humans, and embraced each other. Children laughed and danced. Somewhere music began to play. Later that evening, sat with on a hill overlooking the new settlement. The twin moons of Nu were rising, casting silver light over the landscape below. "I thought I would die in that prison," admitted quietly. "I had accepted it, but then your people came and everything changed." "They are your people too now," said. "That is what Admiral told me. She said they would never stand alone again." Was silent for a long moment. Then she reached out with one of her 4 hands and took his. "I made the right choice," she said. "That day in the wreckage when I decided to save you, I made the right choice." Squeezed her hand gently. "You gave me a life, a family, a purpose. Everything I am is because of you. And everything my people will become is because of you." Eyes glowed softly in the moonlight. "You were our gift from the stars, and you brought us to the stars in return." They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the settlement below come alive with light and laughter. Human and working side by side. 2 species that had never known each other, now bound together forever. The galaxy would learn in time what humanity truly was. Not the barbarians that old records described, not the dangerous primitives the assembly feared, but something far more powerful than any weapon or fleet. Humanity was the species that remembered, the species that returned, the species that repaid kindness with loyalty and cruelty with justice. They had saved 1 human child. Humanity had returned with armies. And now, together, they would face whatever the future held. Not as 2 species, but as one family. The end.